Hi,
Hi,
Dawn. Very nice to be with you today.
Ian, same.
And I'm just going to just do a little introduction, and then we'll go and talk about what we're going to talk about today, which I'm really excited to talk about. So, Dawn is a psychotherapist and counsellor, and you've been in practice for 18 years, which is amazing. And the reason I've invited Dawn to talk to me today is because my whole passion is about mind and body, the mind body system, and how that are, we cannot ignore what our life past sort of experiences have been and how that's shaped us, and how trauma has also shaped us, and how stress in the system can cause impacts on health and various things and patterns that we get stuck in. And my whole work really is about understanding ourselves at a deeper level, releasing um, emotional patterns, and really to get back to who we essentially are at our core, which is presence, ease, and peace that is available to us.
Mhm.
But we cannot deny that we have had various experiences in our lives. So that's really where I'm coming from. And that's why I've chosen to speak to you today, Dawn.
I love it.
So, yeah, would you like to talk about, yeah, what your work is around trauma, nervous system, and how you see that shaping our experience, and
Mm.
then also how we can come back to a more peaceful, calmer system.
Yeah, well, so my area of specialty has been around trauma and attachment trauma, primarily working with kids and families and bringing more awareness into um, viewing how people show up in the world from this trauma lens. So polyvagal theory, which is something that I also am trained and educated in and bring into my practice, is this better understanding of our biology and
Mm,
how what we might have experienced and how our autonomic nervous system experienced that plays a role in our whole bodily system. So, what we are experiencing in our our sensations, what we experience in the feelings that we connect to it, the thoughts that we develop from it, and then outwardly our behaviors. Um,
fascinating.
yeah, and so it's really at the foundation of how I practice, and not only how I bring it into working with people and helping them better understand it, but then also in my personal life. It's really how I just view the world. And one of the
Mm,
things that I really love about better understanding um, people from this trauma nervous system lens is it has so much more compassion, and we
mm,
shift away from sort of these diagnoses and judgment, and we really sort of expand upon this curiosity,
mm,
this hope, this possibility. Um, and I think it really offers people that once they better understand that. So there used to be this idea of like figuring out what's wrong with someone or what happened to them. And I think now we're in a place where we're really viewing it as what was the experience um, in how the nervous system assessed that experience. And so
mm,
shifting away from um, this, I'm not as maybe open and kind view of individual experiences. And supporting what you're saying is really being able to help the individual know at the core,
Mm,
feel, feel that they have a better understanding of what might have happened for them.
great. And I love that we can bring science to that kind of deeper
Yeah.
understanding that of our true nature and our being,
Mm.
um, and that actually that there's a kind of scientific lens we can look through as well to understand how we operate, really.
Yeah.
So what's your scientific view on trauma, of what's happening in the body, and then how that shapes the nervous system?
Well, just to expand upon what trauma means from a nervous system perspective, and those of us that specialize in trauma is any experience that the nervous system was pulled into a stress response. So any experience that the nervous system assessed as a danger or threat to existence, to life.
Mm,
And so really that's so individual to each person, and each person's nervous system is hardwired from their life experiences, their relations with others, their present and past environmental circumstances. So it's important that we're viewing people individually, and we're not assessing the experience, but we're assessing how that experience landed in that person's nervous
mm,
system. Yeah. And I don't mind nerding out at all to better explain um, the way the nervous system works and how it communicates with the brain, but I don't want to go down that road if that's
yeah, so we could touch
not
on it and the mechanism, when
something.
so I know that there's we maybe understand trauma, that there could be a big traumatic event.
Mhm.
Um, it could be physical violence, or um, a sudden death, or something like that, or sexual abuse, or there's that more like underlying um, long-term trauma that has eroded our kind of sense of autonomy, our sense of ourself, and a belief in who, our beliefs about ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing that is helpful too to just maybe expand upon is um, developmental trauma. So
Mm,
developmental trauma are experiences that children might have um, been exposed to during their development that pulled them into a stress response, and
mm,
that could be um, a parent that wasn't emotionally attuned, and so they weren't really sensing a parent that was able to offer them a nervous system that was
mm,
offering support, attunement, connection. That could be basic needs not being met.
mm,
So physically, a body that is hungry, exhausted, cold. The environment was just uncomfortable, overwhelming, chaotic. So we can really um, view many things as, did the nervous system sense that as safe, or did the nervous system sense that as a threat? And things such as medical traumas can be considered a developmental trauma. So kids who might have had some type of medical concern when they were born. You have a very underdeveloped nervous system that's experiencing a lot. So whether there's bright lights, loud noises, separation from a caregiver. I've worked with families where the caregiver is the person who has to hold the child while a procedure is getting done. And that can land in a nervous system as a threat and be a trauma that
Mm,
sticks.
mm,
So you have developmental trauma, which we now know has longer lasting impacts on a child, and whether or not there was a safe person that was able to offer safety, connection, um, also impacts how that nervous system
mm,
develops. And we now know that um, the brain development is impacted by that. When we get to individuals now who are past the point of their brain is still developing. So around, I
mm,
think it's like 26, 27, the prefrontal cortex is finished developing, and how trauma lands from that moment. And so from a trauma lens, we would view that as either single incident or adult traumas, which show up much differently than traumas happening
mm.
during
That's
development.
yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? So you've got the developmental side, and then the kind of more one-off events later in as after the brain's
Right,
developed,
right.
and then with the what how does that impact our because I'm very fascinated about, you know, that we develop ideas about ourselves and beliefs and thinking
Absolutely.
based on
Absolutely.
our experience and
Yeah.
that you know, how does that impact on the brain in the pre-adult brain?
Yeah. In working with little kids, I used to say something and I would joke with my families, like, I know this is so profound, but kids only know what they know based on what they know. And
Mm,
and so if we think about a 3-year-old and their experience, they're so the nervous system assesses safe, not safe, and it responds in a way to keep the person safe. So we have these three pathways of survival. One is seek safety in others. And we know that children do this. Most of us who are parents know that when our kids were little, anything that might have been overwhelming, uncomfortable, scary, our children look to us to let them
mm,
know it's okay, right? And if we give the smile and we give the like it's good, go play, right? They go run off. They might look back over their shoulder again just to make sure we're still there and it's okay. Um, if that is not available, if a child doesn't have that first um, response, safety response, then they get pulled into the sympathetic stress response.
mm,
And
mm, mm,
sympathetic is what most people know as fight, flight, but really what's happening in the body is the system gets a surge of mobilized energy, and the body is given signals to do something to be able to manage that threat. Now, interesting for children is most children are not able to fight.
mm,
Usually, the danger is something that is too much for them physically to be able to manage on their own. And most children don't have the opportunity to flee
mm,
either.
mhm,
So it's an interesting response because it gets a little bit trapped in their bodies. Um, and then we have the dorsal shutdown.
yeah.
We're not meant to stay in the sympathetic mobilized energy for too long. And
So
so when the nervous system detects that whatever the challenge is, whatever the threat is too much, and sympathetic is not managing, then the body will respond in a dorsal vagal shutdown.
that's like a freeze response, is it?
So freeze is actually the more mobilized energy getting trapped. And if you think about what it feels like in the person, most people will describe it as like they feel the mobilized energy, but they couldn't do anything,
Mm,
right? Freeze can then also result in collapse. So we could be frozen and then so freeze is a blended state, but sometimes it's sympathetic dorsal and
mm,
sometimes it's just a dorsal response. So it's really how it shows up in that individual.
Yeah.
And then dorsal, most of us would recognize it if we've experienced it. It's like a disconnect. The body actually goes into conservation mode. It's a shutdown.
Disassociation,
You say
like
that?
disassociation, like going off in your thoughts.
Disassociation is one possibility of shutdown. Um, it could simply, like in little kids, it could simply look like a child that's not engaged. It could be a kid that like goes and hides. In adults, um, it could just be like the zoning out, the doom scrolling. It's really when, and again, it's so
Yeah.
individual based. So I usually am wanting to find out more about what my client's experiencing to really kind of help them better understand. So it's usually this like slowing down. Sometimes it's um, just wanting to become invisible. Sometimes my
Mm,
clients will describe it as like they just want to pull the covers over their head.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
so we
yeah.
have those
And
stress responses in
yeah,
kids, and so when we think about if that's what their nervous system learned early on was
mm,
what was needed to stay safe, then we have a nervous system that's going to go there a lot quicker.
and it's going to retreat quicker.
It's going to just respond. So whether it
Yeah.
responds in a sympathetic, if it responds in a dorsal, maybe it goes to both depending. But it happens quickly. So I had shared with you that example of a car sensor system. So now the car's beeping with objects that are pretty far away, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
it's a more sensitive, it's a more overprotective nervous system because it needed that to survive. And then going back to your question around how that shows up in our beliefs about ourselves. So we only know what we cognitively know at the developmental age we're at. And so if we learn that nobody cares about me, I'm not
Mm,
important,
mm,
because that's all we know. We don't know that we have a parent who's an alcoholic and they're
yeah.
struggling. We don't know that our mom has postpartum depression and she's struggling. We don't know
Mm,
that our dad is doing everything possible to offer us financial stability, but it's not enough. And now my mom is stressed out all the time, and we don't really have like sufficient amount of basic needs. So kids start to make sense because that's what our brain does. It gets these signals from our nervous system and it makes sense with the limited information we have. And that does start to become our core beliefs. And because this is where I think it's pretty fascinating, because now we have this overprotective, oversensitive nervous system, it's automatically responding when things feel familiar. So it's
mm,
offering more evidence to the brain. So now that little kid that ran away from me on the playground, my brain is like, oh, that's right. You're not important. You're not good enough. Nobody
mm.
likes you.
Reaffirming what's already
Yeah,
the system.
it's just when we are in a nervous system stress response, we only have access to that survival brain, which
Mm,
is very limited information. It only has the information from prior experiences or just basic information from that experience. So it's going to go, oh, I know this one.
yes.
This is the you don't belong. Oh, this is the one where you're not smart enough. Oh, this is that one that the world isn't safe. And does if that makes sense?
Yeah, totally. And if you were told, or shamed about expressing emotions, or you're too
Mhm.
sensitive, or
Or too much.
you're too much, and then you internalize the emotions, kind of push it down.
Mhm.
What's that? Do you know the mechanism that's happening there?
Yeah, I see that so frequently. It's so
Mm,
interesting that so many of us, sadly, were just given whether it was just a direct statement of like, that's not acceptable,
mm,
like
mm,
that emotion isn't acceptable,
mm. Anger isn't, or yeah.
or it was just a subtle, like, you're fine,
Mm,
like, um, but many of us were given messages during our development that big emotions needed to go away,
mm,
or they weren't appropriate. They didn't, we weren't validated for them. So I'm going to give this woman credit, Jessica McGuire. She does nervous system training as well. Um, and she used the phrase cortical gaslighting. And I love
mm,
that. So it's when we are told to override the thoughts that are popping up for us. But it's really challenging because the nervous system is giving the brain these signals. And so we're not going to be able to reframe. So reframing, mantras, there are all these more sophisticated ways to override what we're actually
mm,
experiencing.
mm,
And so
mm,
that's where to pull in the somatics, why body up is more,
mm.
um, um, I guess, powerful is really the way that we access that because we want to validate that there's a reason our brain is making sense out of this because it's experiencing something, it's getting these signals, and the
Yeah.
signals, what the signals the brain is getting are accurate, but they might just not be needed in this moment. The story might not be happening in this moment. Yeah.
Brilliant. And yeah, because I think for a long time um, I could cognitively understand things, and I got huge insight from understanding that I'm not my thinking, and I don't have to
Yeah.
believe it, and I don't have to buy into certain patterns of thinking. And that was, it was revelationary on many levels. But it was
Mhm.
only when it was the somatic side. I think it's for that deeper wounding, the
Yeah.
kind of core stuff that I really got. I think for example, if there's a trigger like you didn't get invited to something, or um, you feel in a certain situation very nervous or whatever, that's when we can go to. That's for me has been like a really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't
Oh,
mind using that
mm,
example, because I find all of this so fascinating. And
mm,
um, so one thing that because I'm a trainer, because I'm a consultant, so I help other clinicians in their work. But then I think most of us start with being curious about ourselves. And most of us, I think, do cognitively understand, and we can bring clarity to, oh, yeah, that makes sense why I believe that about myself because my my mom had lots of anxiety, and that was her way of managing, is like she couldn't handle me being scared. So I was told like that's too much, right? So if we just kind of use that as an example. Um, but then when we are in it, it doesn't shift, right? It's like, well, this happened again. Like I still believed I was too much. And if we
mm,
use your example of that, like feeling, I'm going to say like rejected when we don't get invited to something or left
mm,
out,
mm,
a very common belief is like, I don't belong, or like, I'm not important enough. Nobody cares about me. They kind of interweave with each other. Um, so cognitively, you might have this awareness that that's a pattern you fall into.
mm, mm,
But then when it happens, you kind of get this feel like, oh, like, no, but this time I think this one is the true one. Like, because
Yeah.
at the core of your being, it feels true. And
Mm,
and so what's behind that is a nervous system that got pulled into its pattern. It's like I know this. This is like you don't. This is so if we're really going to pull back, whatever the level of discomfort is, or what the bodily sensations are, the nervous system goes, "Ooh, got this one." Sends the
mm,
signals to the brain, and the brain. I'm joking because the brain doesn't work this way, but it's like pulls out the file. Like, oh, here we
mm,
are. We know this one.
yeah, yeah.
Here's all the evidence that this is your story.
Mm,
And what is really cool that we started to experience in the somatic school, and we now know the science backs it, is being with and connecting with what we're noticing
mm,
just starts to slow that automatic response down.
yeah. And Dawn, for me, connecting to that present
Mm.
space that I over years of like understandings, kind of from Buddhism and to various different teachings, connecting to that place that is totally okay.
Yeah,
It's connecting to that and then being present with the sensations. So
yeah.
if someone doesn't have that, do you, if they haven't got that connection, because not, I didn't have that connection
Mhm.
originally, I didn't even know that that existed.
Yeah,
Um, you're kind of solving the problem with the mind. You're kind of therapizing yourself with the mind, whereas when we're in connection with that deeper place that is present and okay, expansive, then that's, I feel like, where the healing really can happen.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like often in my practice,
Mm,
I will hear people say like they'll come and see me because they know I practice differently, and they'll
mm,
say like I know my patterns. I
mm,
know I know my negative beliefs about myself. I have a solid understanding of how my past childhood experiences show up, my attachment patterns. Like they'll come in like fully resourced in all of that. And they're like, but it still doesn't change that I feel stuck around this. It still doesn't
mm.
change that I get activated in this,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And all of that is wonderful because ed education and bringing awareness to what we experience is a part of the healing journey, because part of healing is we're wanting to create new meaning making around what we experience. So we don't want those childhood stories to change. So we don't want to say, like, I'm not important. We want to say, it makes sense that I didn't believe I was important because my mom wasn't able to show up in a way that made me think I was important, right? But we can't just think that and then magically that
No.
becomes our true story. And so that's where this recognizing these responses, and we
Mm,
slow it down, we start to bring awareness to our patterns, we start to create, like, even if they're just these little micro moments of coming back into connection. So whether connection to ourselves, connection to others, and then we start to create more space so that we can integrate those new stories. So those new
mm,
stories are um, able to be integrated and stored so we can hold the two.
mm,
We have this like inner wisdom that, and this is kind of where it goes into like wounded kid parts. So we know we have a wounded kid part in there,
mm,
but we also are able to be in the present, and we tap into that true authentic self of ours. And that's the part that knows that that's how that part feels. But
yeah.
that part's the one that's managing the system now. So
Mm,
so we
yeah.
can so like it shows up like Oh, I didn't like I just heard that everybody got together for coffee and like I wasn't included. And the little kid part chimes in like that's because no one likes you. Like
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then we can go, okay, I know you feel that way, but I don't believe that that's my truth anymore. And it's like because we created these new um
Neural pathways.
yes.
Neuroplasticity, you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that starts to, but that takes time. And that's like the other part of it is like, I think sometimes we read about like these biohacks and vagus nerve resets, and it sounds like it's going to be like if I just do this and this. But wounds that have been there, especially since childhood, like it's slow and small actions, and that's what I think what's so wonderful with just the slowing it down like you were saying and just the constant connecting
Mm.
and compassion. Like I think compassion is so powerful,
Yeah.
and we I think most of us struggle a little bit with offering it to ourselves.
Yeah, I think because we're historically have been so hard on ourselves. Compassion, to be compassionate and kind and loving with the experience in the body can sometimes feel like it can show up as resistance because we're actually like we don't really want this and we're being a bit hard with it.
Yeah, it's that negativity bias we have that comes into play because if we think positively, we might put ourselves in threat.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I find it all super cool.
yeah. So I feel like we've only just touched on and there's so much more. So maybe we could do a part two in like a few months or something,
Yeah,
because I feel
absolutely.
like we've done the introduction, and then actually there's more about the kind of what we can actually do to support and to
Yeah,
connect, and some practices that are healing for the system.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess this is a good ending for like, I guess the theme to take from this one is that educating about our biology hopefully offers people like a little bit more openness and kindness around what their experiences are. And then to bring awareness to that of and
Mm,
just trying to stay in a place of curiosity and openness is like,
openness.
yeah, is a great place to just begin that healing journey.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh, thank you so much. I've absolutely loved this because you
Same, the same.
provide such depth to the understanding of what actually is physiologically going on and mentally. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'm gonna look forward to part two.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to end the recording.